All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're looking at Joby Aviation, a company that's, they're saying they're going to totally change transportation with flying taxis.
Flying taxis.
Electric flying taxis, right.
Right.
So we're going to dig through their financials. We're going to look at some recent reports.
Yeah.
And try to figure out if this is a company that's really going to take off.
Yeah.
Or if it's all just, hype.
What's so interesting to me is the contrast.
Right.
You've got a company with hardly any revenue.
Yeah.
But a valuation that's through the roof. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
Is this just like irrational exuberance? Or are investors seeing something that the rest of us aren't?
Okay, so let's break this down. First of all, we're talking about eVTOL aircraft.
Right.
Which is electric vertical takeoff and landing.
Yeah, basically picture a flying taxi.
Yeah.
Zipping above all the traffic.
Just like above the freeway. And Joby's like I don't know if they're the leader, but they're one of the leaders in this whole.
Yeah, definitely one of the front runners.
They're attracting a ton of investment.
Yeah, huge investment.
And they're working towards actually launching this service. Launching these air taxi services, right?
It's the goal.
So.
And that brings us to the big question mark.
The big one.
Their valuation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at a price to sales ratio of over 3,000.
3,000.
Now, to put that in perspective, for like a normal company, a well-established company, a PS ratio might be like 10 or 20.
Oh, wow.
So this is like astronomical.
Okay, so what does that tell us? What does that tell us about how investors are looking at Joby?
Basically, investors are betting that this company is going to generate massive revenue in the future.
So they're saying, we know they're not making much money now.
Right.
But we think down the line,
exactly,
this is going to pay off big time.
Yeah, it's a classic high-risk, high-reward scenario.
Okay, so before we get too carried away with all the hype.
Yeah, let's stay grounded.
Let's look at the financials. Let's get into, like the nuts and bolts.
Yep.
All right. So their gross margin is almost 80%. That's pretty healthy, right?
It is.
I mean, in any industry, 80%.
Yeah, that means they're doing a good job of managing their production costs.
Right.
Relative to their revenue.
So that's good.
Yeah, but keep in mind, they're still in the very early stages.
Oh, right.
So their overall revenue is still super low.
Okay, and then we look at their operating margin, which is negative 51,000%.
That's
a lot of red.
That's a big number.
Should we be worried?
I mean, it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay.
But, it's not necessarily a reason to panic.
Okay.
It's pretty common for companies that are investing heavily in research and development.
Okay, so they're putting a lot of money into building the technology.
They're building the future, right. So to some extent, these operating losses are expected. The real question is, how long can they keep this up?
Yeah.
How long before they need more funding?
How long can they keep spending money like this?
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. But to do all that research and development, are they drowning in debt?
Actually, no, their debt-to-equity ratio is really low.
Really?
Which means they're not relying too heavily on borrowed money.
Oh, interesting.
And their current ratio is over 16.
Okay.
So that tells us they have a lot of cash on hand
to
cover their short-term obligations.
So they're in a pretty good position.
Yeah, financially, they seem to be in a pretty strong spot.
Even with those big operating losses.
Yeah.
So who are the people backing this company?
Well, the ownership structure is pretty fascinating.
Okay.
You've got major institutional investors like Bailey Gifford, Vanguard, BlackRock.
Oh, yeah, the big names.
The big players.
And then insider ownership seems pretty high, too.
Yeah, that's right.
So does that mean the people running the company, they have confidence?
It could be a good sign, yeah.
Okay.
High insider ownership often suggests that they believe in the long-term prospects.
Okay.
But, there have been some recent insider sell-offs.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean?
It's not necessarily a red flag.
Okay.
Individual insider transactions, they happen for all sorts of reasons.
Right.
We really need to look at the overall trend.
And
in Joby's case, there's been more selling than buying lately.
Okay.
So something to watch.
So there's a little bit of caution mixed in with all the optimism about Joby.
Yeah, if not all sunshine and rainbows.
And then you've got Toyota.
Yeah.
Invest in $500 million.
That's a huge vote of confidence.
That's a lot of money.
From a company like Toyota.
Toyota's not...
They're not messing around.
They're not going to just throw money away. Right.
All right.
but let's be realistic. Joby's success depends on a lot of factors.
Absolutely.
That are still up in the air.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah. So, like, for example...
Well, I mean, first of all, the regulatory approvals.
Oh, yeah.
The FAA is going to have a huge role to play in determining when and how these eVTOLs can actually operate.
Right, right.
They're going to be very careful about safety.
Yeah.
About noise levels, airspace integration.
You know, you think about, like, all the helicopters flying around already.
It's already crowded up there.
And then you're going to add thousands of these things.
There's a whole new layer of air traffic. Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they manage that.
And then there's the technology itself.
Right.
Can they deliver? Is it safe?
Is it reliable?
Is it reliable?
Yeah.
And will people actually embrace this?
That's a big question.
You know, like, are people going to be okay?
With these things flying around.
Flying overhead.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, like, the early days of self-driving cars.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, lots of promise, lots of potential, but also a lot of skepticism.
Yeah.
And fear of the unknown.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison.
Yeah, and I think, you know, any new technology that disrupts the status quo is going to face pushback. Yeah. So Joby's going to have to win over not just investors, but regulators and the general public.
So it's not just about building a cool flying machine.
Exactly.
It's about creating this whole system.
It's a whole ecosystem.
That works, that people trust.
That's safe, that's reliable.
That's safe, that's regulated.
And that makes sense for cities.
Yeah, like, it's a huge undertaking.
It is. It's a really ambitious goal.
So Joby is trying to, like, create a whole new mode of transportation.
That's what it feels like, yeah.
Not just a new type of aircraft.
Yeah, it's not just about the vehicle itself.
It's about changing the way we think about transportation.
And how our cities are designed.
Exactly.
And we live in them.
It's a whole new paradigm.
So it's a fascinating case study.
It is. It's super interesting.
To see, like, how this unfurls, you know?
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's so much potential.
So much potential.
But there are also so many challenges.
Yeah, and we'll dig into those challenges a little bit more in part 2.
In the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so stay tuned for that.
Like,
we'll be right back.
We'll be right back. You know, getting through all the regulations, that's going to be a huge deal for Joby.
Oh, for sure.
The FAA is not going to just give them a free pass to ride. They're going to be looking at everything, from the safety features to the noise levels to how these things fit into the airspace.
It makes sense, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about totally changing how we get around cities.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of questions.
Tons of questions. Tons of concerns.
And then there's the whole public acceptance thing.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Are people going to be comfortable with these things flying over their heads?
Flying around their neighborhoods?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they going to trust the technology?
I don't know. It reminds me of self-driving cars.
Oh, yeah.
When they first came out.
A lot of people were skeptical.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I don't know.
Fear of the unknown.
Yeah, fear.
Yeah.
Do you see a parallel there?
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
I mean, anytime you introduce a new technology, that really shakes things up. There's going to be some resistance.
So Joby's going to have to convince not just the investors, but, like, regular people.
Regulators, the public.
Yeah.
Everybody.
All right, so let's talk about the technology itself.
Okay.
Building a safe, reliable eVTOL aircraft.
Yeah.
That's got to be incredibly difficult.
Oh, it's a huge challenge.
What are, like, the biggest hurdles they got to overcome?
Well, battery technology is a big one.
Okay.
I mean, these things need powerful batteries that are lightweight, durable, and can provide enough range to actually make these things commercially viable.
And then what about, like, backup systems?
Right, redundancy.
Like, what happens if a motor fails?
Mid-flight.
Yeah, in the air.
That's not a good thought.
No, no.
But it's something they have to consider.
Right.
You need multiple systems so that if one fails, the others can take over.
It's like the software, too, right?
Oh, yeah, the software's huge.
All flight control.
Autonomous flight control.
Yeah.
Navigation.
Collision avoidance.
All of that.
It's a lot to get right.
It is. It's incredibly complex.
So it's not just like building a cool-looking flying machine.
Right.
It's about building a system.
It's about the whole system.
That people can trust.
A system that works.
Yeah, that actually works.
Reliably.
In a really complicated environment.
A complex environment?
Yeah, like the sky.
With weather, with birds.
Yeah, with other aircraft.
Exactly.
And that's why that partnership with Toyota is so interesting.
Oh, yeah. That's a big deal.
Toyota knows how to make things.
They know how to manufacture at scale. And they have really high standards for quality.
So that could be huge for Joby.
I think so, yeah.
As they start to try to build more and more of these things.
As they scale up production.
Yeah, but even with Toyota's help, there's no guarantee, right?
No, absolutely not.
This is a really new industry.
It's a brand new industry.
And there's a lot we don't know.
So many unknowns.
Yeah, like what about air traffic control?
Oh, that's a great point.
How do you fit thousands of these eVTOLs into the airspace?
Especially in cities.
Yeah, like we're not talking about a couple helicopters. We're talking about a whole new layer of traffic.
Yeah.
It's like creating a whole new air traffic control system just for these things.
Yeah, for low-altitude urban airspace.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It's a huge challenge.
But I guess, I mean, any new way of getting around requires changes to infrastructure, right?
Absolutely.
Like, think about the car. When the car first came out.
It changed everything.
Roads,
cities, everything.
So we've talked about the regulations. We've talked about the technology. And we've talked about how this could change cities.
Yeah.
But can Joby actually make money?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Like, can they make this a viable business?
Yeah. It's hard to say for sure at this point.
I mean, I'm guessing their financial projections are based on some pretty optimistic assumptions.
Right. They're assuming that there's going to be a lot of demand for these air taxis.
And that the costs are going to...
They're hoping the costs will come down as they scale up.
But there's also, like, the ongoing costs.
Oh, yeah. You've got
Maintenance. You've got charging infrastructure.
All that stuff.
You've got air traffic management.
And then how much are people going to pay?
That's another big question.
Right. Is this going to be like a luxury service for rich people?
Right. Or will it eventually become affordable for the average person?
That's going to be a big factor.
It's going to determine how big the market is.
Yeah. If it's just for like the top 1%,
right?
That's a pretty small market.
A limited market.
So it's a tough needle to thread.
It is. It's a balancing act.
Joby's trying to do something really hard.
You're trying to create the future.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to make flying taxis as normal as Ubers.
Right, as commonplace as ride-hailing.
Yeah, exactly.
But can they actually pull it off?
That's the question.
That's the big question.
Is it a futuristic fantasy, or is this actually going to happen?
To answer that, I think we need to look beyond Joby and see who else is out there, who else is in the game.
Yeah. The competition.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that in part 3.
We'll dive into the competitive landscape.
All right, stay tuned. So we're back.
Back for more.
And we've spent the last 2 parts kind of dissecting Joby, their financials, their goals.
Their big ambitions.
And the huge hurdles they face.
Right, the challenges.
But you mentioned... they're not the only ones doing this, right?
No, not at all.
Like the eVTOL space is getting crowded.
Getting really crowded.
You've got like the big aerospace companies.
The giants like Boeing, Airbus.
Yeah.
You've got all these startups. And then you've got the car companies.
The car companies, yeah.
Like Hyundai, Toyota.
Like everybody wants a piece of this.
Everybody wants in on the action.
So how do they all stack up?
Well, the big aerospace companies, they obviously have a lot of experience.
Yeah, they've been building planes forever.
Right. And they have a ton of resources.
Money, engineers, all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they can also be kind of slow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're not always the most agile.
Because they're so big.
Exactly. It's hard for them to change direction quickly.
So is that where the startups have an advantage?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
The startups, they can move fast. They can take risks.
They're not afraid to try new things.
Right. But they often don't have the money.
Right.
Or the infrastructure that the big companies have.
So it's like a trade-off.
Exactly. Each type of player has its own strengths and weaknesses.
What about the car companies?
The car companies.
Yeah, what are they doing here?
Well, they actually have a lot of relevant expertise.
Really?
Yeah, think about it.
Okay.
They're already building electric cars.
Right.
So they know about electric powertrains. They know about batteries.
And they know how to mass produce things.
Exactly. And that's going to be crucial for the eVTOL market.
So their experience actually translates pretty well.
I think so, yeah.
Interesting.
And then you've got the tech companies.
Oh, yeah, like Google, Uber. Yeah, they have to.
Well, Google, they're all about software, data, AI.
And that's important for the air traffic control stuff we talked about.
Exactly. They could play a big role in developing those systems.
And Uber, they probably just want to add flying taxis to their app.
Right. Make it seamless.
So order an Uber Air.
Just like you order an Uber X.
Yeah. Except it flies.
Exactly.
So we've got this crazy mix of companies.
It's all different industries.
All competing in this eVTOL space.
It's a wild west out there.
So what does that mean for the future of this market?
I think it means we're going to see a lot of innovation.
Oh, yeah. Competition breeds innovation.
Exactly. Companies are going to be pushing the boundaries.
Trying to outdo each other.
To gain an edge.
And for consumers, that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. It means better products, lower prices.
More choices.
Exactly.
So for our listeners who are, like, really into this, what should they be looking at?
Well, first of all, the technology, which companies have the best aircraft?
Yeah.
Which ones are closest to getting certified?
Safety's got to be a big deal.
Huge deal. Absolutely.
Nobody wants to fly in something that's not safe.
Right.
But it's not just about the technology.
No, you also got to look at the business side. Do they have a solid plan?
Yeah.
Do they have the money to make it happen?
Can they actually build these things at scale?
Exactly.
It's a lot to consider.
It is, and it's risky.
There's a lot of risk.
But there's also a lot of potential reward.
Yeah. I mean, this could be huge.
It could revolutionize transportation.
So it's been a really interesting deep dive.
I've enjoyed it.
Into this world of Joby and eVTOLs. We've learned a lot.
It's a fascinating space.
And it's moving fast.
Super fast.
So I guess the takeaway is...
But stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Do your research.
And buckle up.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride.
Thanks for joining us.